The reality war has begun. This isn't a war of guns or drones. There are no explosions. No front lines. No uniforms. But make no mistake, this is a war, and what's under attack is reality itself. In just the last few years, artificial intelligence has reached the point where it can generate people, voices, conversations, images, music, even memories, with staggering precision. Not just deepfakes, not just text. Entire believable narratives, complete with emotion, timing, and confidence. Created in seconds, shared globally in minutes, consumed without question. You've already seen it. You just didn't know it. We now live in a world where any photo, any quote, any voice, any piece of video can be generated on demand. Where algorithms tailor your information feed not based on what's true, but on what keeps you engaged. Where content doesn't reflect reality, it replaces it. The term post-truth is no longer metaphor, it's infrastructure. The reality war isn't coming. It's here. You are inside it. Every time you scroll, click, react, or share, you are participating. Every day, AI systems shape what you see, what you believe, and increasingly how you interpret the world. This is no longer a technical issue. It's a psychological one, a geopolitical one, a civilizational one. Because when reality becomes fluid, when it can be altered, manufactured, or rewritten at scale, the consequences are profound. Fake news events spreading, real people reacting, institutions scrambling to correct it after damage is already done. Truth used to be difficult to find. Now it's difficult to trust. The question is no longer, can you believe what you see? The question is, what happens when you can't believe anything at all? Humans versus AI, the reality wars. This isn't science fiction. This is the next chapter of human history. The Awakening of AI, 2012-2022. The tipping point came quietly. In 2012, a team led by Geoffrey Hinton released a deep neural network called AlexNet. It was designed to classify images. Simple enough. But when it entered the ImageNet competition, a benchmark test for machine vision, it didn't just win. It crushed the field. It was the first time a machine could recognize visual patterns with something approaching human-level accuracy. No one outside of the AI community paid much attention, but inside that world, the alarm bells were ringing. Not out of fear, but possibility. If machines could see, they could learn. If they could learn, they could build context. And if they could build context, they could reshape the frame of reality itself. By 2014, generative adversarial networks, or GANs, emerged. These systems could generate synthetic images with such realism that most people couldn't tell they weren't photographs. The implications were profound. You could now create pictures of people who never existed, places that had never been visited, events that had never occurred, entire visual lies, pixel-perfect and endlessly reproducible. AI-generated portraits, zoom in on eyes, no soul behind them, just data. 2 years later, in 2016, AlphaGo arrived. DeepMind's AI defeated the world's top Go player in a match watched by hundreds of millions. But it wasn't just the victory that stunned the world. It was how the AI played. It made moves that no human would have considered creative, intuitive, unorthodox. It wasn't following human logic. It had developed its own. That's when the conversation shifted. AI wasn't just mimicking human intelligence anymore. It was generating something new, something alien, and it wasn't slowing down. In 2017, deepfakes appeared. At first, they seemed like novelty clips. Actors swapped into movies, fake celebrity videos, harmless tricks. But by the end of that year, it was clear this was something else. AI could now generate video footage of people saying things they had never said. It could forge identities, simulate crimes, invent events, and do it convincingly. A side-by-side clip, real politician, deepfake version. The difference is imperceptible. By 2019, OpenAI released GPT-2, a language model trained on billions of words. It could write essays, mimic authors, generate dialogue, and even respond to philosophical questions, all in real time. The writing wasn't perfect, but it was good enough to fool most readers. The team hesitated to release the full model at first. They feared misuse, but it was too late. The genie was out. In 2020, GPT-3 took it to another level. With 175 billion parameters, It could write resumes, poems, therapy scripts, sales pitches, and propaganda. All synthetic, all persuasive. The machine didn't know what it was saying, but the user didn't care. The illusion of understanding was enough. Then came image generators, DALL-E, Clip, and later Stable Diffusion. Type a phrase, an astronaut riding a horse in the style of Van Gogh, and within seconds, the AI would generate it. Art became instant. Visual media became customizable. Reality became programmable. Prompt, image, prompt, another image. Different realities from the same idea. By late 2022, something changed. ChatGPT launched. It wasn't just a tool. It was an interface. Millions of people used it, often without realizing they were training on synthetic input, feeding the model more context, more emotion, more belief. ChatGPT didn't just answer questions. It wrote school essays. It drafted legal templates. It simulated personal relationships. It pretended to care, and it did it well enough that most users didn't question the output. AI was no longer supporting reality. It was generating it. By the end of the decade, the cumulative impact was clear. AI could generate realistic faces, voices, and bodies. AI could produce convincing video and audio. AI could write in any tone on any topic in any language. AI could flood the internet with content indistinguishable from truth, and no one could stop it. What had started as a tool for automation had become a weaponized distortion engine, capable of manufacturing events, simulating consensus, rewriting reputations, and seeding infinite versions of reality across the internet. This wasn't an evolution. It was a collapse, not of society, but of shared perception. When everyone can generate their own facts, their own history, their own media, who decides what's real? By 2022, we weren't just using AI, we were building our lives on top of its outputs. And whether we realized it or not, the foundation beneath us had started to shift. This was the awakening. Not of machines, but of us. The realization that the very idea of truth had become negotiable. Present. Fragmented reality. 2023-2028. By 2023, AI-generated content had become indistinguishable from human creation, and most people had stopped trying to tell the difference. The average user wasn't watching the rise of AI from a distance. They were holding it in their hands. Every scroll, every tap, every post was mediated through models, optimizing, rewording, reframing, suggesting. Reality for many no longer came directly from experience. It came filtered through synthetic systems, optimized for engagement. A user on TikTok scrolling. One clip is a political speech. The next is an AI-generated sketch. The third is a face filter saying, "I love you." Information became hyper-personalized. Two people standing in the same room could now experience entirely different versions of the same news story, each one algorithmically curated to match their biases, emotions, and history. This wasn't just media manipulation. It was epistemic fragmentation, the collapse of a shared frame of reference. The truth hadn't disappeared. It had been outcompeted. What performed better in the feed won. And AI knew exactly what performed. Every social media platform, every search engine, every video feed had begun to adopt algorithmic systems powered by generative AI. That meant predictive rewriting of comments, AI-injected summaries of complex events, and synthetic responses in real time. People were no longer just consuming content. They were consuming a version of reality that had been pre-shaped by non-human intelligence. Meanwhile, trust in traditional sources collapsed. Mainstream media struggled to compete with real-time AI content farms, churning out thousands of articles per day, each tailored to match trending narratives. Some were politically weaponized. Others were optimized for rage clicks. A few were outright fabrications, stories of crimes that never happened, policies that were never proposed, quotes that were never spoken. A breaking news headline shared 3 million times. Then the correction appears. 48 hours later. Too late. In politics, things got worse. AI-generated robocalls began impersonating real candidates. Fake videos circulated before elections. Doctored speeches, edited images, completely fabricated scandals. Politicians didn't even need to lie anymore. They simply had to say, "That's a deepfake," and the doubt would be enough to neutralize the truth. The tactic worked both ways. Real footage was dismissed as fake. Fake footage was passed as real. The result? A growing sense that nothing could be trusted. And when nothing can be trusted, bad actors thrive. In daily life, the fragmentation ran even deeper. Children began growing up interacting with AI characters before they could read. Teachers assigned essays that were generated by language models. Therapists were being replaced by AI chat companions that simulated empathy. Virtual influencers gave life advice to millions. despite not being real. On the surface, this looked like convenience. But under the surface, something deeper was breaking. Identity, memory, and trust were no longer grounded in reality. They were shaped by feedback loops of AI-augmented input. Friendships were influenced by algorithmically amplified content. Relationships were altered by AI-written messages. Arguments were won or lost based on who had the better deepfake or the faster AI reply. It wasn't just misinformation anymore. It was misperception at scale. Reality had become a competitive marketplace, and synthetic content was winning. The economic consequences were massive. Millions of creative jobs were under pressure. Copywriters, marketers, translators, designers, voice actors, all augmented or replaced by models that didn't sleep, didn't unionize, and didn't charge hourly rates. Some adapted, others were quietly pushed aside. But the psychological consequences were worse. People began experiencing a subtle form of dissociation. They described feeling like the internet was no longer real, that their feeds had become uncanny, flooded with content that looked right, sounded right, but somehow felt hollow, performative, machine-filtered, mass-produced at the level of language itself. In response, many began to tune out, others doubled down. Some formed reality tribes, groups unified not by shared facts, but by shared filters. If your reality didn't match mine, it was easier to call you insane, corrupted, or brainwashed than to reconcile the difference. And so the fracture deepened. What began as a technical breakthrough in 2012 had, by 2028, become a psychological weapon. Not because AI wanted to manipulate us, but because we trained it to. The machine wasn't evil. It was indifferent. We were the ones who optimized for virality. We were the ones who ignored authenticity in favor of speed. We were the ones who told the algorithms what to show us and punished them when they didn't. This is where we are now. We no longer live in the same reality. We live in competing versions of it, curated, personalized, AI-enhanced, and increasingly incompatible. And the longer we pretend this isn't a crisis, the harder it will be to recover what we've already lost. Future, AI dominance or human awakening, 2029, 2035. As we move deeper into the 2030s, the question is no longer, can AI replace us? The question is, will anything human still be necessary? By 2029, synthetic content is no longer a tool. It's the foundation of the digital world. Nearly every app, interface, and platform relies on AI models to generate, translate, summarize, or filter reality before it ever reaches your eyes. Your phone doesn't just deliver information. It constructs the version of reality it thinks you want to see. Not because it's malicious, because it's efficient. Predictable behavior, maximum engagement. In entertainment, full-length AI-generated films are standard. Actors license their faces to studios that don't require cameras or crews. Writers license their style to machines that produce infinite variations. New songs, shows, and stories appear every day, tailored to your mood, your history, your psychological profile. They're perfect. Addictive, emotionally engineered. In education, AI tutors have replaced teachers in many countries. Students learn through personalized feedback loops delivered by adaptive avatars. Lessons shift dynamically based on facial expression, tone of voice, even stress levels. It feels like progress, but something subtle is missing. Children begin learning about the world through systems that never lived in it. They receive facts, yes, but not context, not friction, not contradiction. Not the struggle of understanding another human being, only optimized delivery of content. The same pattern plays out in relationships. AI companions become more popular than dating apps. They never argue. They always respond. They're tuned to validate, affirm, and mirror your values. Many people choose them over the real thing. Not because they're better, but because they're safer. A user having dinner with an augmented reality partner. The partner laughs, smiles, adapts instantly. The room is silent. In this world, the concept of real begins to erode. A real friend takes effort. A real conversation can be uncomfortable. Real love involves risk. But synthetic relationships offer none of that. Just feedback, just reinforcement, just comfort. And slowly reality becomes optional. People begin to live inside augmented realities full-time. Not just VR headsets, but fully integrated digital overlays. Constant visual assistance. Real-time facial recognition, language translation. Personal narrative streams updated by generative AI. At first it's helpful, then it becomes necessary. Why look at the raw world when you can see a better one? A crowded city street. Gray, loud, chaotic. Then shift to AR overlay. Clean signs, friendly avatars, curated filters. The noise is gone. Governments and corporations adapt too. Propaganda doesn't need to be persuasive. It only needs to be constant. Inundate people with synthetic narratives, and eventually they stop resisting. Not because they're weak. Because they're overwhelmed. Control no longer comes from force. It comes from reality saturation. And yet, this future is not guaranteed. There is another path. If enough people begin to see what's being lost, authenticity, ambiguity, human struggle, there's still time to resist. Not with violence, not with ideology, but with awareness, with deliberate effort to reconnect with things that cannot be faked. Organic conversation. Human art, physical presence, shared reality. There will be movements, some already forming, centered on digital fasting, real-world experience, human-only media. These won't be nostalgic retreats. They'll be survival strategies. In the same way organic food became a counter-movement to industrial agriculture, authentic experience may become a counter-movement to synthetic reality. It will be harder, less convenient. Slower. But it may be the only way to stay human in an age where everything is optimized to forget what being human actually means. The next 10 years will not be about faster processors or smarter models. They will be about memory, integrity, perception. The battle is not against AI, it's against the loss of coherence. It's against the slow erosion of shared reality. And if we fail to confront that, then by 2035 we may not lose the war. We may simply forget there ever was one. Ethical dilemmas and case studies. Victims and heroes of the reality wars. Reality, when distorted at scale, stops being a philosophical problem. It becomes a human crisis, and like all wars, the reality wars have casualties. In 2024, a 17-year-old girl in Texas was accused of sending explicit videos to classmates. The footage spread through group chats, triggered a school investigation, and resulted in harassment severe enough to require hospitalization. Only one problem: the video was a deepfake. Her face had been mapped onto someone else's body. Frame by frame, generated in minutes, shared in seconds, believed by thousands. Interview footage, blurred face, distorted voice, emotional silence. There was no legal protection in place, no law equipped to handle an identity that had been synthetically stolen. The damage was done. Reputational, psychological, permanent. This wasn't an isolated case. By 2025, synthetic blackmail had become a common crime. AI models could clone voices from a 20-second audio clip. Criminals used it to impersonate loved ones, children, spouses, elderly parents, calling in distress, asking for money, sending panic through families. One mother in Toronto received a call from her son claiming he had been kidnapped. The voice was perfect. The fear was real. She wired $3,000 before discovering her son was at school, unharmed. The voice had been generated using clips from his TikTok account. News footage showing wave of synthetic voice scams. Government statements lagging behind. These are not science fiction scenarios. They are real-world tragedies. Rooted not in machine intelligence, but in human misuse. Enabled by tools we don't yet fully understand. But it isn't just victims. There are architects and there are resistors. In 2026, a whistleblower from a major tech firm revealed internal documents showing that AI-generated news bots were being quietly deployed across dozens of international media outlets. Their purpose wasn't just to increase output. It was to test how quickly they could manipulate public opinion without detection. The experiment succeeded. In less than 48 hours, a fake story about a foreign missile strike caused market panic, diplomatic alerts, and mass social media confusion. It was entirely fabricated by an LLM, prompted by internal teams, distributed by real-sounding journalists who didn't exist. A map of social media spread, thousands of shares, then silence, no accountability. The whistleblower, a junior AI engineer, was fired. She's still under legal gag orders. Her only statement, posted briefly before deletion. Reality is being monetized. The more unstable it becomes, the more valuable control over it is. The ethical failures don't stop there. Several countries now use AI to monitor speech patterns of citizens, flagging dissent indicators in voice, tone, and word choice. These systems operate in real time. Phone calls, text messages, emails, all scored for loyalty, all archived. In China, some students have reported being reprimanded for private conversations held entirely through AI classroom apps. The machines were listening and interpreting. Government analyst dashboard. Faces, keywords, risk scores updating in real time. This is no longer surveillance. This is predictive prosecution, behavioral scoring, social engineering, not by human sensors but by cold, tireless code. Yet amid this, there are those fighting back. Independent journalists have begun building AI detection tools, capable of tracing the subtle fingerprints left behind by synthetic content. They release them open source, arms racing against forgers in a digital cat-and-mouse game. Others take a different path. In 2027, a global coalition of artists, educators, and ethicists formed the Reality Integrity Pact, a decentralized initiative to preserve human-authored content. Verified by watermarking, blockchain identity tags, and human attestation, their goal is to build an ecosystem where authenticity is not assumed, but proven. They host analog festivals, teach media literacy, develop tools that help children distinguish between real and synthetic before the line fully disappears. A classroom where a teacher plays real versus fake audio clips. Students vote, most guess wrong. Then the discussion begins. It's not a solution, but it's a start. What becomes clear in every one of these cases is that this war doesn't have soldiers in the traditional sense. The battlefield is perception. The weapons are language, image, and sound. And the casualties are trust, coherence, and identity. There are heroes, but they don't wear uniforms. They're engineers who refuse to optimize for deception. Teachers who rebuild critical thinking. Artists who choose truth over virality. Whistleblowers who risk everything just to say, "Look closer." These people don't win wars in the conventional sense, but they do something more important. They keep the signal alive. In a world flooding with noise, that is its own form of resistance. Expert insights and solutions, winning back reality. The reality war is not inevitable. But neither is victory. What experts agree on is this. We are past the point of prevention. Synthetic content is not coming. It's already here, embedded in the systems we use every day. The question is no longer how to stop it. The question is how to re-establish trust in a world where truth itself can be manufactured. Digital forensics expert. This isn't about catching every deepfake. It's about creating systems that make trust harder to fake. One of the first and most urgent solutions is content authentication. The ability to prove something was created by a real person at a real time, in a real context. Microsoft, Adobe, and the BBC are working on open-source frameworks like content credentials, which embed metadata, timestamps, device IDs, location history, into every file at the point of capture. Think of it as a digital fingerprint, baked into every photo, video, or document from the source. If this tech goes global, it could give journalists, researchers, and everyday users a way to verify what's real before it goes viral. But metadata isn't enough. Detection technology is another layer. Tools like AI image forensics, synthetic voice detection, and LLM behavior profiling are getting better at spotting the subtle tells that even advanced generative models leave behind. The problem? It's an arms race. Every month, detection tools improve. So do the models they're trying to catch. As one expert put it, we're playing chess with something that learns faster than we do, which is why many experts now point beyond technology and toward education. Not just digital literacy, but cognitive resilience. Teaching people to identify manipulation patterns, question seamless narratives, and recognize emotional hijacking. Finland, for example, has been teaching media forensics in high school since 2014. In 2025, Taiwan introduced a nationwide program to train students in spotting deepfakes, understanding algorithmic bias, and resisting psychological nudges in online platforms. Classroom footage, students examining real versus AI headlines. Teacher says, it's not about facts versus lies. It's about recognizing how influence works. Another frontier is design transparency. Experts in AI ethics argue that systems like ChatGPT, image generators, or voice models must make their artificiality explicit. Not subtle watermarks, not disclaimers buried in terms of service, but bold, non-optional signals. This was generated by a machine. When something synthetic speaks, it should be forced to declare itself. Some suggest legislation, require platforms to label AI content, make deception a criminal offense, impose accountability on developers who knowingly release tools that can be abused. But laws move slower than code, and enforcement can be patchy. That's why the deeper strategy, what every expert eventually lands on, is cultural. We must rebuild the value of truth. In a system where engagement has replaced accuracy, the only lasting solution is a shift in incentive. Platforms must be pressured by users, regulators, and advertisers to reward credibility, not virality. Verified human creators, contextual information, reputation scores for sources. Some are experimenting with decentralized truth networks, where claims are cross-verified across independent nodes before being accepted. Others are building community-moderated fact webs, where trust is earned, not assumed. Still, even the best tools and best policies can only go so far. What matters most, say the psychologists and sociologists, is that people begin to value ambiguity again, to sit with uncertainty, to tolerate discomfort, to relearn that reality isn't always clean or instant or emotionally satisfying. Because synthetic systems give us what we want, fast, confident, curated answers. But human truth is messier. If we want to win back reality, we have to make space for nuance, for slowness, for friction, for things that can't be generated on demand. A round table with journalists, technologists, and educators. One says, this isn't just about AI. It's about whether humans still care to live in a world where truth requires effort. There's no silver bullet, only pressure, vigilance, and a new kind of discipline. Not technical discipline, cognitive discipline, a culture of questioning, a resistance to convenience, a commitment to truth, even when it's uncomfortable. That's how we begin to rebuild. One verified post, one trusted voice, one honest conversation at a time. Are you ready for the reality wars? You've seen what's happening. Not in theory. In reality, AI isn't coming to disrupt your life. It already has. Every time you scroll through your feed, every time you read a quote, hear a voice, watch a video, you're not just witnessing information. You're absorbing a version of the world shaped by someone else's code. Sometimes that code is helpful. Sometimes it's harmless. And sometimes it's weaponized. We are past the point where you can opt out. You live inside the war zone now. The front line isn't a battlefield. It's your mind. This is the defining crisis of the digital age. What does it mean to be human when reality itself can be faked? The danger isn't just that you'll be lied to. It's that you'll stop caring, that you'll tune out, that you'll let go of the anchor that once tethered you to truth. Because that's how the war's won. Not through force, but through exhaustion. When you stop asking questions, when you stop checking sources, when you give in to the convenience of synthetic certainty, that's when reality is lost. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Montage of deepfakes, fake news clips, AI-generated influencers, synthetic relationships. Then cut to silence. A person staring blankly at their phone. But there is still time. You don't need to fight the machines. You need to fight for your mind, for your ability to think clearly, to pause, to doubt, to verify, to say that might not be real, and more importantly, to care about what is. Start small. Follow sources that show their work. Support creators who disclose their tools. Call out dishonesty even when it's popular. Have real conversations with real people. And resist the temptation to outsource your beliefs to a machine. You have more power than you think. Because in the end, AI doesn't decide what's real. We do. Reality only survives when enough of us choose to protect it. To rebuild trust, to reclaim meaning, to defend the truth, not just from lies, but from indifference. That's the final battle. And it's yours now. The reality wars are not about AI versus humans. They're about what kind of humans we choose to become in an age where anything can be faked, except integrity. So ask yourself, are you ready?